Beyond the Strange.
Natural and unexplained phenomena.
Spiritual activity.
Cryptids. The future and the past.
Conspiracies.
Beliefs and ancient remains. The radio program for you, the listener, and bringing your stories and concerns to the table. And now your hosts, Dave C. and Brian Anderson.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome to Beyond the Strange. I am your host, Dave C. Thank you all for being here tonight. Winter is coming, Brian, or so I thought. I'm dying here in Northern California, man, where all the wildfires are.
Yeah, it's been kind of interesting here. During the first part of the week, we were down into the 30s for a low, and now we're back up to like 75 today, and it's supposed to remain that way for the rest of the week. So it's definitely interesting weather.
Sure is. I didn't get a reprieve, unfortunately. It was supposed to be a little bit cooler than normal, but obviously we're back in the high 90s, unfortunately for me. But there is a cooling trend for next week, so I'm getting lucky there.
Oh, no doubt. Did you get any of the rain?
Oh, mixed in with the ashes from from the wildfires all around me, bro. Enough to dirty everything up, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. See, the rain last week pretty much put a kibosh on all the fires around here, so it's been fairly clear. A little bit of haze, nothing big, but it's been fairly clear and nice. So I can't complain now.
Yeah. Well, one more day of burning up. Hopefully things will get better next week. But we are live here on Google Hangouts. We are also streaming from the YouTube. Not from the YouTube, but from YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter at Strange Days 2015. The hashtag is BeStrange with the letter B and then the word strange after that. We also have a Beyond the Strange Facebook where I post most of my show's info and updates. If you haven't gone to the Beyond the Strange Facebook, it's a good place to start to get information about the show, all the upcoming shows. As a matter of fact, I wanted to announce that next week we will be having Chris Garatino from the Montauk Chronicles. That's going to be awesome. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, I'm really excited over that one. That next week's show is going to be a blast.
No doubt, no doubt. I'll be touching up on watching the movie maybe probably 3 or 4 more times than I've already seen it. And I'll tell you what, Brian, I get scared every time I see that movie. It's just too real and too creepy.
Yeah, I have a tendency to agree there, and Chris's approach on the movie was very, very interesting. And to have those 3 gentlemen come up and tell their stories all about the one place and not really know each other, it's just, it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
Another demonstration of synchronicity at its best, in my opinion. But we will be getting into that next week. And also next month, I believe Sunday on the 11th, we will be having Robert W. Sullivan IV. He'll be talking to us about his books, Cinema Symbolism and The Royal Arch of Enoch. And if you guys haven't heard Robert Sullivan yet, you guys are in for a treat. I dig Robert Sullivan so much. I can't wait to hear him also. We got some good stuff coming up, guys. But again, that's all on the Facebook page where we post our stuff, and you can see the updates there. We have the links there. We also have we are also on Google Plus, by the way, and it's also Beyond the Strange is a profile name. Our email is beyondthestrange@gmail.com. You guys can email us there and send us your input and your suggestions, things like that, and we will definitely get back to you. Always get back to you. That way we can keep in contact and what we want on the show. But we really need your guys' input. We need you to call in. We do have Skype. The ID is Strange Days 2015. I mean, this show is for you people. We want to hear your stories. We want to hear your experiences. We want to know if there are things out there that we don't know, and I'm sure there is.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this show is based around the listener, and that's what it's designed for. That's who it's for. It's for you people out there to share with everybody else that's listening your experiences, what you've witnessed, what you've seen. It's all about you and your stories.
Absolutely. And tonight we have a great show for you tonight. We'll be talking about Monsanto. Who are they and why we should be concerned? Also, the crisis in Syria and how it relates to a possible biblical apocalypse. We will also talk about prepping and what to expect in the coming doomsday scenario. We have a lot to cover. And before we do that, I just want to, again, remind people that we do have a new producer, Holographic, and she's in the Hangouts with us. She's in the background doing her thing. How's it going, Holographic? And we also have with us, joining us tonight, Leslie S. Johnson the third.
Hi.
What's up, Les?
Good evening, Les.
Well,
Good evening. I'm just sitting back here saying hi. How you doing, everybody? And continue.
Les is just chilling until one of these topics are coming up. We are going to touch up on not just the alien Jesus, but we are going to talk some more about historical Jesus and what history forgot about Jesus. There's a lot that didn't make it to the books. There's a lot of books missing from the Bible, right, Brian?
Oh, yes. I forget when it was, and Les might know this since he has more of a background on it. But before the King James version and all this came about, yes, I honestly don't know how many books there are actually to the Bible or how many were left out, but I hear it's quite a few. And the Book of Enoch was one of them.
Yeah, that's another book that we're going to definitely get into. If not tonight, we'll definitely get into it with Robert Sullivan. I do want to announce that we are on Twitter, and we are at the Strange Days 2015. Currently, right now, if you are tweeting, if you have any questions, if you have any suggestions, please do. Producer Holographic will pick those up, and we will, answer your questions accordingly. And with that, I want to start off with some of the highlights in the news that I've read. There's been a lot of stuff going on here, and one of the things that got my attention was drones. It says here the UK is to team up with NASA to build traffic systems for drones. I don't know about that too much, man. I mean, The article says here the British government is expected to collaborate with NASA to build an air traffic control system that can guide, track, and trace drones, the growing popularity of which is starting to demand a more disciplined regulation of existing airspace. The governments are all in early discussions with NASA about the drone traffic management system, and it is hoped that those discussions will lead to a UK involvement in the development of that system and the participation of the UK industry in future trials to test the robustness of the technology. Under Secretary of State of Transport Ahmad Tariq told the House of Lords earlier this month, Britain already has an extensive set of regulations that require drones to stay at a certain distance from people, crowds, and buildings in public places, but the rules have been difficult to enforce. An air traffic system recommended by one parliamentary would crack down all drones that fly under 500 feet, making it easier for law enforcement to nab reckless drone pilots. There will have to be some way in which to identify a drone's owner or a responsible person. We recommend a European register, suggested Lord Nat Wee in the same session on the civilian use of drones. A mature drone traffic management system would offer similar features as existing air traffic control, helping drones reroute their itinerary to avoid congestion and extreme weather conditions. I don't know where we're at right now with drones, but I don't see a whole lot of them in the sky as far as the United States goes. And there's a law against drones right now, isn't there, Brian?
Well, the FAA cracked down on drones a couple of years ago until they could come up with basically a plan on how to keep track of them, and limiting their use to where it doesn't endanger aircraft or public safety, which was relatively wise. However, I mean, drones these days, you can get them in a hobby shop anywhere. I haven't looked at your local Walmart or any place, but I'm sure you can probably even get them there. But those are for hobbyists. And, you can't do anything really about a hobbyist. Well, you can, because remote-controlled aircraft have always been under certain restrictions for their use. There's specific places you can use them. You're not supposed to be able to use them everywhere. And that's just remote-controlled aircraft, of which I would think that your hobbyist drones would fall under the same category. Which means, there are certain air parks for RC aircraft that are available, and those airspaces are cleared from public transportation and private transportation, i.e., cars, private aircraft, and commercial aircraft. And to get down into the nuts and bolts of it, if you've got something that's flying that's as small as what most of these drones are, and they're usually under 500 feet, you can't track them on radar. So you've got to, it's very, very difficult. So you have to come up with a different way of tracking them. And that's what the FAA has been looking at for the past couple of years. And they've loosened up their restrictions a little bit, but not a whole lot.
Yeah, I would think that a lot of these drones that are being flown around for hobby use. I mean, I actually did see a drone not too long ago while we were hiking in a park the other day, and man, these things they're pretty big. They're not as small as I thought they were, and they could be easily confused with even a UFO, in my opinion.
Well, and you're going to get more UFO reports from them as people trick them out, using LED lights and everything else, and flying them at night and whatnot. And they're not that loud, especially if they're battery operated. If it's a gas engine, then yeah, they're going to be loud like an RC aircraft, remote controlled aircraft would be. Those are pretty loud. And usually those are one or two cylinders that they're running on the propellers. But yeah, if you're running a battery operated one, yeah, it's not going to be loud at all. It's going to be almost silent unless you're only probably within 10 feet of it. So yeah,
Wow.
I imagine that you're going to get a lot more. You're going to get a lot more cell phone footage of weird lights in the sky and weird behaviors, and along with more reports of UFOs as well.
Exactly. I want to remind everybody that we are Beyond the Strange, and you can reach us at Strange Days 2015. Hashtag is Be Strange. We already have Nurse Nancy, K28, Karen McIntyre, Allison Bell. I want to give you guys a shout out. How you guys doing, everyone? But yeah, definitely gonna watch out for those drones, and hopefully we can have some kind of, I guess, a traffic light. They might get a ticket sometime.
Well, take it from a personal perspective. Especially, it doesn't matter if you own a house or rent a house. If you have acreage or just a little plot of land that you're living on, and they're equipping these things with cameras. And you have a teenage daughter. I mean, how would you feel if somebody was peeking in somebody else's window using one of these things in a residential neighborhood?
Yeah, that happened recently, and the father wasn't too happy when he pulled out his shotgun.
And then you come to property damage. Who's at fault? Is it the operator that's at fault, or is it the homeowner or renter that's at fault if he blows it out of the sky?
Right.
And
it's
so
going to be a mess.
yeah, it's a quagmire. I mean, just an absolute quagmire that this whole drone issue gets into. And, like I said, they should treat it just like the hobbyists. They should treat them just like RC aircraft, remote-controlled aircraft, because those have strict limitations on them.
Yeah, I remember even back then, there was quite a few of those. What do we have here? What's behind Russia's military buildup in Syria? Now, this is going down. This is a little touch on what's to come later on in the show with Brian. He's going to discuss the Syria crisis that's happening right now and how it's going to affect us. But it says here, what's behind Russia's military buildup in Syria? And it says evidence is emerging of a significant intensification of Russia's military support for the Assad government. While the exact scale and purpose of Russia's latest deployments remain obscure, the available evidence suggests that the Russians are preparing an airbase near Latakia city for possible airstrikes in support of the Syrian army, complete with several hundred Russian troops protecting it. This is in addition to a Russian Navy refueling facility already in operation in the port of Tartus, and substantial supplies of weapons and military advisors for the Syrian regime, which the Soviet Union and Russia have been supplying Syria for decades. And it goes on and on, talks about Vladimir Putin, and the United States. They're putting pressure on the Greeks and Bulgaria governments. A lot of this, and again, we're going to get into this later, but it all does look like it's coming to a head. What do you think, Brian?
Well, it's a little excuse me.
Or do you want to save this for later?
Well, we'll get into more of it a little later, but right now it's just too early to tell. There's a lot that factors into this. I mean, there is a lot that most people don't know. And it really does factor into it extremely, especially with Russia and Putin and Assad, and even mainly our U.S. government and President Obama. A lot of it factors into this. And like I said, we'll get into this whole, and it is just a quagmire. It is a mess.
Yeah, it is. It doesn't look very, very good in my opinion. And we will get more into that. We do have a UFO fleet that was seen on NASA space station video. Researcher asked, alien or secret government tests? And this is from the Inquisitor. You can take it or leave it, of course. But what appears to be a UFO fleet appears in NASA video taken from the International Space Station robotic camera, as discovered by a prominent YouTube online UFO archivist and researcher. The find, if indeed it is a find, is just the latest in a long series of UFO appearances on NASA ISS video feed. Just last week, a YouTube user in Australia found apparent evidence of a UFO miles in diameter hovering near the space station. The user, who posted the video under his screen name Bluebeard 2011, said that he had been combing the NASA ISS feed for 2 years, hoping to find some evidence of a UFO observing the space station that orbits about 250 miles above the surface of the Earth. But when he finally found one, as reported in the Inquisitor article that can be accessed, it was a doozy. That sighting came about 3 weeks after another UFO hunter examining the NASA feed found that was described as a cigar-shaped UFO flying past the space station at warp speed. I remember seeing that video, the cigar cylinder-looking shape. Have you seen that one?
I think I did, yes.
It looked like it started off floating around really slowly, but then it started picking up and then boom, just like freaking Star Trek, warp speed. And I don't know, my opinion, again, a lot of these they look CG, but you never know. I did see one recently where it looked like it was taken either early morning sunrise or right at dawn, but the sun was either coming up or going down. And I'll tell you what, that video looked real. If I can get the links up on there, I'll definitely put it up on our Facebook or on our Twitter feed. But that one looks real. But nowadays it's hard to tell.
Well, not only that, I can't remember where the footage was taken. I watched it this morning sometime, and I can't remember where the footage was taken. I almost want to say Utah, but I'm not positive on that, so don't quote me. But yeah, no, honestly, I mean, something like that, especially early in the morning or late at night, depending on where it's at. It could be easily, atmospheric disturbance with a plane flying through, and it's just leaving a lot of moisture behind where it's packing through. It could be a rocket test, and these are only the could be's, but it was definitely very interesting footage.
Yeah, that would be great to see. There's a ton of them out there, but again, unless you've taken a video or you've seen a UFO, it's hard to tell what's real and what's fake out there. But I'll tell you what, from what I personally, when I saw all these red dots in the sky one night, and I actually called on Jimmy's show on Fade to Black about that on a Fader night, and it was still fresh from that weekend. But it was in the sky. There was at least 7 to 10, maybe even 15 red dots in the sky, and they were just sitting there. And when I was out there, man, it freaked me out. I mean, it just made my stomach sink, thinking that there's something coming towards us, or we yeah, definitely need to be prepared, because that was scary, man. I'm hoping that it was just Chinese lanterns, because I would never think that something like that can happen, Brian. I mean, you've had your experiences too, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, mine came April of this year. It was the first time I've ever actually seen what I would consider a UFO, because I couldn't explain it. And, imagine, I've been in aviation pretty much all my life, in or around aviation, ever since I was born. And this was something that I just really had no explanation for at all. And, but again, when we get into these drones and the Chinese lanterns and people having cell phones and all this, it kind of almost muddies the water. You know what I mean? I mean, everybody's got a cell phone, and it could be. And trust me, when I was sitting there, and I've worked at many international airports because, well, that's where you got to work, or on private airfields, or at Air Force bases. You sit there and you watch a hauler, an actual cargo airplane come in, and you see the lights 10, 15 minutes easily before that plane comes in for a landing. You see a light out there and it's like, wow, and it looks like it's just sitting there solid and not moving until it actually, and especially if you're right in the flight path of it. And you sit there and you look at it and you go, wow, what's that? And and then suddenly, if you sit there and watch it long enough, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger as the minutes go by. But I'm talking easily 10 to 20 minutes, you could be sitting there seeing this super bright light out there. And if I were to try to capture it with my cell phone, it would be grainy, it would be dark, and all you would see is this, blob of light out there that isn't very big, no matter how much I zoomed in on it. But if you got somebody out there with a professional camera, the story changes quite a bit because you can pick up on different things.
Yeah, it's almost like you need a professional camera on you at all times if you really want to get a good video or any kind of shot, because using my phone camera was just the worst idea. I mean, I could barely get anything, and it just wasn't. It didn't even look like anything. It was just really distorted. But it'd be really good to have some kind of decent camera at all times, or if you're actually going out UFO hunting, take a decent camera with you, because I'll tell you, your phone may be good, but sometimes it's not that great. Shout out to Decrypts. He actually Decrypts put up the fleet footage. It's the NASA video. It's on the hashtag BeStrange. Allison, I saw that. Need those links to the videos. There's a link right there. And Raspberries comes in and says, could have been orbs. I have seen these twice. And they could have been orbs. I don't know. All I know is it was one of the scariest things in my life. And, my daughter was actually crying, thinking that it was the end of the world. And I was just trying to keep her calm, saying, it's probably Chinese lanterns. But I didn't know. I was really hoping that it was Chinese lanterns, but it could have been anything, and that was just a really scary situation. I'll have to go into detail on that one of these nights. But anywho, on a lighter note, and Les, you can join in on this one because I know you're a Bigfoot fan. It says here, Texas cannabis bust nearly foiled by Bigfoot hunters. It says a group's hunt for the elusive, mystical, and totally not fake Sasquatch in Delta County, Texas, affected deputies' efforts to bust an illegal cannabis grow. During a hog hunt, a group of hunters came across an illegal grow worth estimated, $6.5 million. When they alerted Delta County deputies and game wardens to recover the 6,500 cannabis plants, a group of hunters who were also in the area tracking Bigfoot got in the way of law enforcement efforts to crack down on the growers' camp. Ooh. Clearly, the most important insight to glean from this story is that if you want to bait Bigfoot, you should try using cannabis. Why else would the mythical Squatch be near a gigantic grow? Based on his size, he'd likely need a large yield to fully fill the effects, so 6,500 plants makes sense, kind of how it took Andre the Giant 2 liters of vodka to fill warm. I'm sorry, I had to throw that in just so we can get on a light note there. But
wow. Wow.
Is that crazy, man?
Well,
Uh,
actually, it's kind of funny because Texas Bigfoots are said to be some of the meanest and more bloodthirsty of the Bigfoots. So actually, maybe they need a little cannabis in their life. You know, they need a lot
you
of it.
know, and why not? I mean, everybody else was trying to find a way to break away from the stress and the pressures of the forest, I guess. But and I could see that here in California, especially with all the wildfires going. Actually, I'd like to talk about that a little bit later. Because here in California, and you too, Brian, because I know you're getting fires, where you're at too. I would think that would actually drive the Bigfoot into more of the more populated areas.
Actually, depending upon the loss of food, loss of habitat. You would think they would be that's something to check out. You check the newspaper, check the local BFRO reports. I wouldn't doubt at all concerning these fires happening that people would see Bigfoot more, whether it's crossing roads or crossing, looking for more food because it's all its normal sources of food, whether it be animals, plants, are going to run, and they're going to follow the animals. They're going to follow the food sources, and why not grab a little bit of garbage? We throw away a lot of food every day, so
It is unfortunate how much food that we throw away. I mean, they could easily find some kind of dinner, if you will, just behind your local supermarket. What do you think, Brian?
Well, I mean, I live in an area up here in Montana, of course. I mean, it's pretty sparsely populated here by human inhabitants. However, during dry seasons, this summer was pretty dry. What normally
Mhm.
happens is that the big cats and the grizzlies and the black bears and the brown bears, they usually come down out of the mountains because the berries aren't as proliferant as they normally are. Their game isn't, you know, where it should be. So they come down to the human populated areas. But we didn't get all that much this year. And like I said, we've got the bear, we've got the big cats, and we've got deer. I've got at least 3 or 4 deer that traipse across the property on a daily basis.
Mhm.
And I know down here at the local golf course, one of the big cats uses the sand traps as a kitty litter box. But
Oh, nice.
but it is what it is. But and that's exactly what animals do, though. If you're living in a populated area that doesn't have a whole lot of forest growth, yeah, it'll drive those animals down into populated areas. And then you suddenly have you have a whole issue with wild animals and people meeting together, and they don't mix nicely.
generally they get shot, is what
Uh,
happens.
yes, and all they're trying to do is survive just like everybody else. But yeah, I would imagine if you had a population of Bigfoot in the area that where there's a forest fire, that yeah, you would have a lot more sightings.
Yep.
Agreed.
And yeah, I agree too. That's what I brought it up. It just seems like everybody would think that you know these Sasquatch or Bigfoot, however you want to call them, including the other wild animals, that would come in more into the populated areas. This is Beyond the Strange. I am Dave C., your host, with Brian Anderson and Les Johnson. We do have producer Holographic back there just waiting, and we will be back after these messages, after this break real quick. So you all just sit tight. And yeah, no messages here. What am I talking about? There ain't no commercials. But we will be back after this break. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. This is Beyond the Strange. I am Dave C., your host, and we're here with Brian Anderson, Leslie Johnson, and producer Holographic. And we are talking, well, we were just talking news, but we are going to be talking about Monsanto here in a bit, everybody. And before I do that,
Hey, Dave.
I'd like to do that. Yes, sir.
Just to go back to the whole Bigfoot issue again, and the
Sure.
fires. Well, let me possibly clarify that as to a reason why you may not be getting a lot of Bigfoot sightings with the forest fires being around, and that's if they are actually possibly subterranean.
Subterranean.
Yeah, below ground. If they actually live in caves and everything, it's a good possibility that they may be staying underground, and they might have their own stock of food already.
That's true. That's true. Just like hibernating bears or something.
Exactly.
Well, actually, Brian, Dave, there is tales told of they have a complete underground circuit that that they move everywhere underground from one place to another.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. I didn't even know that they... Well, that does make sense. Yeah.
It's also been told that, a lot of times they will dig pits to sleep in and then cover themselves with giant boulders that you or I could never, lift. We're talking, 1-2 ton boulders to cover themselves.
They're that strong, huh? I mean, that's... Jesus.
Well,
That reminds me... go ahead, Brian.
Well, I mean, if we go back to it, if we think about it a little bit, we've all heard the stories about people being able to lift cars when their loved one or their child is in danger or pinned underneath a car, and then being able to lift it and move it off of that person. And there was an article I was reading not too long ago that basically said we put the limits on ourselves using our strength. Mentally, we put the limits on ourselves. And in those high times when we're not thinking about it, those limits go out of, they no longer exist for a short period of time.
I was just thinking that the Sasquatch, Bigfoot, they're always strong like that. I mean, I know it's dumb, but back in the 70s when the $6 million man was on the TV, I remember. Do you guys remember that Andre the Giant? He played Bigfoot,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, but he was also bionic. It turned out.
Yeah, and wasn't he put here by an alien race or something, if I remember correctly?
They were protecting him, I think, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know if... And that was around the same time as the Gimli film, wasn't it, Les?
But it was a little bit after, I think. Shoot, I remember right afterwards that episode was so popular they put out a Bigfoot Bionic Man cart, or like one of those things you had the little plastic rever, and you would rev up the motorcycle and it would take off. There was a Bigfoot and Bionic Man one. I had that toy when I was a kid.
Yeah, I just had the Steve Austin action figure. I wish I had the Andre the Giant Sasquatch one if it ever came out. That would have been a cool Christmas one. Yeah, that would have been a cool Christmas present back then. I was stoked. I'd have been stoked. But talking about Monsanto, guys. Oh man, I mean, is anybody out there watching Mr. Robot?
I have.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brian, are you watching it? And apparently, there is a corporation out there that they use. It's a generic term, but they call it Evil Corp. When I think of Evil Corp, I'm gonna just go out and I'm just gonna say it. I think of Monsanto. I think of a lot of corporations out there that are just, using us to make a buck and not caring about what they put in our food or what kind of products they give us, so we can pretty much become zombies. Just staring at our phones and or watching TV. Um, it's amazing what's going on today, but specifically Monsanto. Um, and as a disclaimer, I just want to say that these are my opinions. These are not facts, as far as I know. But these are my opinions, and the research that I've done are strictly people that I don't know. I just gather the research, and I put it together. But as as far as GMOs go, I was watching a YouTube video, and the doctor on there, his name is Dr. Ed Group, and he is with the Global Healing Center Association, and talking about GMOs. Um, there is a way to avoid GMOs, and basically, what he was saying is that when you go to the store, you want to buy certified organic foods, and the reason for this, at all costs, you want to avoid GMO, or just different types of food. And it's basically vegetables and byproducts. For example, corn is the number one that should be avoided. It's highly modified. They use it to make high fructose corn syrup. Um, there's probably no possible way to go organic on corn. Animals are being fed, this modified corn. It's getting into our systems by eating the meat from these animals that are being fed these organisms. It's gross. That's all I can say. That's the only way I can put on it. What do you think, Brian?
Well, yeah, I mean, most of our corn that's produced goes towards food stuffs for the animals that go to slaughter. I think the last time I looked, I think it was like 85-90% of almost all the corn grown that wasn't being used for ethanol for fuel is actually used to go into animal feed. That feed is then bought by the farmers who feed the cattle, who feed the sheep, who feed the chickens, and so on and so forth. And again, it goes back to your basic food chain.
Yes, absolutely. And when it comes into our system, when we digest that food, it affects us big time. Especially what this doctor was talking about, because of, like, with dairy, and I'm gonna touch on that also later. There's hormones, and they're so modified when they get into our bodies that it takes over, and it starts modifying our bodies and our hormones. Um, it's just really disgusting and gross. Les, did you have something you wanted to add to that as far as the corn goes with these GMOs?
Well, the problem is, Dave, corn is in everything now. It has
Yes,
become
yes.
the additive, whereas corn used to be, for the Native Americans and for everyone else, a staple in our diet. Uh, Now it has become a filler, and if it's genetically modified, it poisons the food. So it's if you go down a grocery shelf right now, Let's say you're in Walmart, you're in Ingles, you're in, your local wherever, Publix, whatever. Uh, if you go down the list, if you look at cereals, you look at just about anything, you'll notice it has HFCS in the place of sugar, or which is high fructose corn syrup, or it's got some form of corn in it, and it's poison. It is. If you get it from, if you don't make sure that it comes from an organic grower, it's genetic. 78% of the corn is genetically modified, if not more.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there some black legislation recently that stated that it didn't have to state if it was organic or GMO anymore?
They're trying to pass that. They're trying very, very hard to pass it. I think there are 68 countries in the world right now that make you label if it has anything genetically modified in it. We're one of the only countries that fight that. They are trying to right now. They have been and are still trying to pass legislation to make it so they don't have to label if it's got genetically modified anything in it.
That's horrible. That is actually a travesty towards humanity, and I'm not joking. I mean that. That's just so. It just it makes my blood boil. Go ahead, Les.
No, I'm just saying. I was agreeing with you. It's just wrong. It's inhumane. It's forcibly making you eat something that you don't know what the ingredients are, and that's inhumane. That's not human. That's evil. Period.
It's very deceptive. And coming up on one of the other, this was like a top 10 list of foods that you should avoid at all costs. I mean, soy is the next big one on the list. It is modified, and soy is another ingredient that it's not in everything, but in some things, you'll see soy in there, and unless again, if it's not organic certified, this is a modified plant that it can. I mean, it's even in infant formulas, and again, they're not labeling this stuff. They're just putting it in your food and being deceptive, and that's wrong, man. I mean, I don't eat soy. I never liked soy milk or any of that stuff, but for those people who are exercising and getting fit and they change their diet and they want to go soy, I would highly be careful with what you eat, because a lot of this soy is being modified. And again, Monsanto, I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but they are responsible for a lot of our food right now, and we really need to be careful with what we're eating. Brian, do you have any thoughts on that as far as soy goes?
Well, I used to drink soy milk. I don't like whole milk myself. It's just something that I gave up on years ago. And I used to drink soy milk, and I gave that up and went for almond milk and rice milk instead. And I don't drink a lot of milk, so But one of the reasons why I did is because of the estrogen content in soy milk and soy products, and that's gone up tremendously over the years. Is the estrogen content?
It's horrible. I mean, it's amazing what's going on in our foods, what they're putting in there, and it makes me sick. This is Beyond the Strange. You're talking with Brian Anderson, Les Johnson, Holographic is our producer, and you're talking with me, Dave C. You can reach us at #BeStrange on Twitter. We are also at Strange Days 2015, and guys, the Skype is up. if you guys want to call in, Skype in. Our ID is Strange Days 2015, and I just want to bring up that we have a new listener, Maya, at Maya Sunval, and she's got a couple of pictures in the hashtag Be Strange with Bigfoot or something like that. It's pretty cool. You guys can see that. Karen McIntyre brings up corn, potatoes, zucchini, soybeans. Yeah, this is all on the list, Karen, that that this doctor was talking about, and it's amazing what again what we're going to go over, what I'm going to go over here. I'm probably coming up on another break here, but I'm just going to finish up this list. Allison Bell, you can cook from scratch and buy organic and make granola. I love organic granola. I mean, I love homemade granola is probably the best. I mean, that stuff is awesome. And it's the soybean oil they use. Yeah, it's partly the soybean oil they use. There's also other oils that are really bad for you, and I'm going to talk about one of those here in a second. It's rice milk. Rice milk's good. That's cool. That's from Les. He's tweeting in there with you guys. You guys are not alone. Another food that's on this list, sugar of all things, modified. Avoid it. It is probably one of the worst things in the world, and it's just so unhealthy for you. Of course, you can look at me and you can say, practice what you preach. Well, guess what? I'm in there, in the same boat with you guys. We don't know that a lot of these people are putting in our food. Can we eat better? Oh, of course we can. Can I eat better? Of course I can. But no, just knowing the information that I've recently gotten, believe me, lots of changes are sure to come. And a good alternate to sugar is locally harvested honey. Anybody?
No, well, that's what I use. I use locally harvested honey myself.
And how do you like that compared to sugar? Do you miss sugar?
No, not so much. I've always had a penchant for honey instead of for sugar, so it really wasn't a giant leap.
Yeah, I use honey when it comes to tea and those kind of drinks, and just eating honey is supposedly good for you as far as allergies are concerned, from what I understand.
Actually, yes, Dave. It's if you take 1 teaspoonful of, it has to be local honey from your local flowers, your local woods, etc. But actually, it will over time, over about a process of a year, it will help get rid of your allergies.
So there you go. Drop the sugar, pick up the honey, the locally, organically grown honey, and start using that and get rid of that sugar. One of the things that people were going towards instead of sugar, thinking that they were eating healthier, of course, this is back in the day when all the diet drinks started coming out, aspartame, so GMO'd. If you guys probably follow Alex Jones. He had a big video on this topic as far as aspartame is concerned. But these guys say the same thing. It's poison, dude. It is poison, and it's just disgusting because what it actually is bacteria poop. And Bear, if you're listening, there you go. Poop. Aspartame is grown from the poop. It's a neurotoxin, and it can become. Oh, do you guys know this? It can become a formaldehyde. It actually can preserve people from the inside out.
Yeah, that I don't doubt. If you remember, I think it was back in the late '80s, early '90s. there was the whole issue with milk and all this, and how it was changing, making teenage girls be, upping their cycle, you know, larger breasts, coming into fertility sooner than what they should have. And that was all back in the 80s and 90s, and that was from cow's milk. That was a big issue back then. And that has just disappeared off the radar.
Yeah, that's amazing. Elsa Bell comes in and says, glyphos. I'm so hard. I can't barely read this. Glyphosate inhibits a plant enzyme involved in the synthesis of the aromatic amino acids. Allison, you gotta talk to me in English. Tyrosine, tryptophan, and phenylene. K28 comes in and says, I buy organic soy milk from Chinese markets. That's a good idea, buying the soy milk that's organic. And that's the key right there. It's got to be certified organic. Allison, when we eat plants that are engineered to resist Roundup, these enzymes are not active in our gut, making us sick digestively. I don't doubt that for a minute. And Turbano sugar. One of the things that I forgot to mention, that another alternative to sugar could be not the raw sugar, but what is it called? It's organic sugar, but they do have organic sugar out there, but Turbano is that's a good alternative. And going back to that, also, people who eat energy bars, you guys, guess what? Some of that modified sugar is in your energy bars. So there you go. Be careful what you eat. Read the label. I'm sure if you just read the label, you'll be better off. Even though they're trying to deceive us, they have to put it down there, or they're in big trouble. An interesting. One of the interesting fruits or vegetables, whatever you want to call it, foods that they put on this list, papayas. It's a recently concern that the GMOs are producing these papayas, and they're often found in the southern South America's countries, and they dig this papayas down there. They also bring it. They import it up to here. That's another problem, is that we get all these imported vegetables and fruits from different countries, and we don't know how they're grown. I mean, Monsanto is huge. They're all over the world, and gosh, they just make me sick, Brian.
Well, it wasn't too long ago. I'd heard an argument from Hawaii, and I forget which fruit it was. I can't remember if it was mango or pineapple or whatever. But they were having a fight with the state of Hawaii, the local farmers, because of this modified fruit that Monsanto was introducing into Hawaii and trying to get them to grow exclusively.
Yeah, it's just amazing. Monsanto is evil corp, big time, in my opinion. And getting back to those oils that I believe Karen was bringing up, this is a good one. Canola oil. Originally, it was called rapeseed oil, and it's a big GMO. There was a big Monsanto fight about this, and it's probably one of the things that brought Monsanto into the light of GMOs and how horrible it is for us. The mix of rapeseed oils and other oils creates this canola oil. And again, people, when you go out to eat, think about what you're eating. You got sugar, manufactured GMO, that's in your breads. It's in a lot of the foods that you wouldn't even think. Dressings. When you go out to eat, you don't even know. And fast foods, these oils like canola oil, soybean oil, corn oil, all these different oils are in your foods. It's just disgusting. I'm sorry, Allison. I know you're probably getting ill from hearing all of this, but it's the truth. And you know, one of the bad things about this too is, you know, our meats, they're being fed all these different organically or not organically, but these modified organisms, and they're being fed to our animals. You know, it's in our hamburger patties, it's in our hot dogs, it's in our chicken. You know, we really need to be careful with what we're eating. We got to read our labels. A good alternative to canola oil, use coconut oil, cold pressed. They're finding that it's actually being used to reverse Alzheimer's. That's a good point right there. That's good enough to use right there. Grapeseed oil, that's another good one. And olive oil for your spreads instead of butter. You know, that's another good alternative. Les, did you want to point something out?
Well, another one that's not bad is extra virgin olive oil, as long as it's organic. But it's something I wanted to put in. You were talking about them feeding all our animals these GMO products. Grass-fed beef is on the rise, thank goodness. And that's really all beef should eat is grass. Cows eat grass. They don't eat corn. They don't eat oats. They don't eat. They specifically serve them this stuff to fatten them up. Mm-hmm. And not only that, feed them egregious amounts of salt, and they live in such horrible conditions. 75% of the United States antibiotics goes into our cattle.
Oh my God.
Well, the whole point about, I'm going to bring something up about Monsanto now, because that's the topic. They have created, and I don't know if you already know this or not, and I'm sure Brian does, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners do, self-terminating seeds. In other words, you have to go back to when you buy these seeds, or you buy these seeds from Monsanto. You cannot take half your corn crop, take the seeds off or the kernels, and then replant them.
Mm-hmm.
They self-terminate. You have to buy new seeds every year from Monsanto to replant. And then once you've planted those seeds, it will kill everything else that's organic. Your soil has been destroyed by it.
Kind of reminds me of a weed.
Well, I mean, and they literally are now making Roundup resistant crops, so they can use their Roundup, which is basically Agent Orange in a bottle. Mm-hmm. So they can pour all this crap on it. So there you go. I mean, if that's not evil, I don't know what is.
Totally evil. I mean, that's just horrible. I'm going to finish up the list before we go to our next break, but the next one on the list is cottonseed oil. Believe it or not, again, just read the ingredients. It's not in everything, but it is in some of your foods. Dairy, dairy. Oh, I'm so unfortunate. I love milk, and but a good alternative to dairy is, like K28 was saying earlier, organic soybean or soy milk, or even rice milk. Another one is almond milk, and you can make almond milk in your own home with your blender and some water and organic almonds, of course. It says here that bovine injected Monsanto modified hormones 30% of the milk in the U.S. People, get away from the milk. Get away from the dairy. If you're going to drink milk, drink raw milk. organically certified, of course, or organically certified goat milk. Also, there's hemp milk that you can look into. But yes, definitely stay away from the dairy, the cheese, the cottage cheese, the cream, all the effects of the hormone levels in the population. It's all from a residue. Oh, and I heard something even more disgusting about milk. The residues that are in your milk. Sometimes they find pus. Sometimes they find blood. It's it's amazing. I mean, it's. I'm sorry, you guys. I hope everyone's already well past their dinner time. Brian, I hope you ate already, and I hope you're not about to,
Oh, I
get
don't
rid
get
of your
that.
dinner.
Yeah, I don't get that grossed out by stuff.
But it's what the people need to hear, right? I mean, they don't know they're being fed all this shit, man. It's just it's disgusting. Zucchini and yellow squash are also GMOs. Some of the resources, if you want to see some YouTube videos, one of them is called Genetic Roulette. Another one is called Seeds of Death. Um, if you want to find out more about how you can get away from all this garbage that is being fed to us, pretty much force fed. There's another video, How to Detoxify Your Life. You can find it on YouTube. And I'll tell you one of the reasons, and then we'll go to break here in a minute. One of the reasons why I'm bringing up Monsanto is because, first of all, I'm tired of seeing chemtrails in the sky. And I know that that's tied into some of the stuff that's going into our bodies, especially through food. But the audacity, the gall that Monsanto has in creating a commercial. I mean, a commercial that makes it look like the average everyday American is healthy and strong and thriving when they eat this garbage. There's a scene in this there's an actual scene of an actual chemtrail in the sky of all things. I don't know if you've seen it, Brian, but it's out there. I've even seen it on the Family Channel of all places. Um, this is just where we're going, man. It looks like the NWO is being bold, and they're just shoving it in our faces, man.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think, what's the end game here? What are they trying to do?
Kill us.
Well, you would think, or I mean, if you're genetically modifying the food chain, and you know humans are going to ingest it. What are they trying to modify in the human? I mean, with all this that has been going on lately, look at all the allergies, the different different diseases or intolerances that have suddenly come up over the past, what's it been, 5 to 10 years. I mean, the intolerance
Good
to
point.
the intolerances to certain foodstuffs, the hyper allergies, and maybe even ADHD, because that's kind of like a new thing over the past 15 years. It's a possibility that all of this, and they're trying to cure it with drugs. It's a possibility that the modification of our foodstuffs, our food chain, is what is actually causing the physical effects within us.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It almost sounds like it's all tied together. People make this food, we eat the food, we get sick, we go to our doctors, the doctors prescribe us these drugs to put us on so that we can get better from the stuff that we eat. I mean, it's a vicious cycle when you think about it, and it just makes me sick. I you know, I don't even know what more to say about that, but we're going to go into our next break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the Syria crisis. Brian's going to start laying it down for us, what it means, and how we hopefully be prepared for it. Also, we're going to go get into some prepping for a doomsday scenario. Stick around. We'll be back. Thanks for joining us here at Beyond the Strange. We are back. We are talking about Monsanto. We're going to be talking about Syria, and we have a lot to cover in so little time. But thanks again for joining us. You can reach us at hashtag BeStrange at Twitter, also at Strange Days 2015. You can Skype in anytime. Strange Days 2015 is the ID. Also, we have our Gmail account, beyondthestrange@gmail.com. I want to thank Lynn from Oz coming on. Hey, Lynn, how's it going? Are you there, Lynn? Maybe not. Okay. Brian, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you can hear me. Well, Lynn is in the Hangout, so whenever she is able to say something, I'm sure she will. But let's go ahead and get into this Syria, this crisis that's going on, Brian.
Well, okay, what this comes down to is basically it's more or less a civil war in Syria, and it started roughly 4 years ago. What it started out with is there were news articles that I've looked at and read that was stating that the president Assad was using chemical weapons on the populace of Syria, especially the rebels. And there's always been contention there. Russia, or former USSR, has helped Syria out. We've helped Syria out. But back in 2013, President Obama wanted to go to war with Syria to remove Assad, especially after all this hype about him using chemical weapons on the populace of Syria. And we're still not sure if he ever did. We know he had them, but we're not sure if he ever used them on the populace. But President Obama wanted to go to war with Syria to remove Assad. And that was going full bore back in 2013 until Britain decided to put the kibosh on it. And they said, no, we're not doing that. And it was supposed to be a joint effort between, the United States, Britain, France, and a few other of the United Nations leagues. And once Britain decided to put the halt on it, France slowly backed out of it as well. They said, okay, let's rethink this. In the interim, what the United States was doing, President Obama and the United States, what they were doing is they were actually funding the rebels that were fighting against Assad, giving them money, munitions, guns, which is how we get IS or ISL, ISIL, whatever you want to call them, the Islamic Brotherhood. And basically what it came from the Arab Spring is what I read, what I remember. But the United States, our own president, they decided we're going to fund the rebels. Well, if we go back in history, what happens when we fund the rebels? Well, let's go back to the former USSR and Afghanistan. We funded the rebels, which once the USSR figured they couldn't win Afghanistan, couldn't conquer Afghanistan due to all the rebel activity, they left Afghanistan after I think it was 15 years of trying to, overtake Afghanistan. But the U.S. was sitting there feeding them money, munitions, weapons, and then and this is where Osama bin Laden comes in, because he was one of the rebels in Afghanistan.
Oh, really?
Now, what happened after Russia backed out? It took about 5-10 years. Then you had the drug lords, which were the former rebels that we financed They're now the warlords and drug lords because the big opium plantations and everything. And then suddenly radical Islam comes in and they start destroying much like we're seeing today. If you recall in the news, the ancient Buddhas that were carved into the rock wall there, they blew those up with RPGs, or some sort of explosive. They blew those up. Those were ancient. And that's what they started to do. They started to destroy all their history, all their ancient history.
Yeah, you're talking about ISIS or ISIL, as you call them, that started going on this rampage, destroying all these artifacts, correct?
Well, now that's what they're doing as well. I mean, from Afghanistan, these warlords were doing it in Afghanistan before we went to war with Afghanistan. And now, right, and now we're seeing the same thing with IS or ISIL, whatever you want to call them these days. We're seeing the same thing. They're doing exactly the same thing. They are destroying all the ancient knowledge, all their ancient places that don't conform to their beliefs. So, yeah, and if you take a look at some of the cities in actual Syria right now, they're destroyed. I mean, we're talking half of the population. The population, it's estimated half the population. The population of Syria was 23 million back in 2013. We are talking now 11 million refugees going to Turkey, Iraq, Jordan, Greece, France, Britain, Hungary. And imagine an influx of 11 million people going to all these countries. Now, it's not only the Syrians, or at least that's what it's believed, because they're losing their paperwork or ditching their paperwork. And you take some place like with Hungary, who is a Christian nation. They've stopped them. They stopped the refugees at the border until they can process them. Show us proof of identity, whatnot. But again, you still have the same issue they are Muslims. The majority of them are Muslim. So you've got a different culture between the Christian and the Muslim, and all it does is breed a lot of tension. They're trying to help. Hungary is trying to help. France is trying to help. Britain's trying to help. Greece is trying to help. Jordan, Iraq, they're all Turkey. They're all trying to help bring in these refugees. But if you have that influx of people that your country is not used to, what happens to your sanitation systems, your refuse? Where are you going to house them? If you look at all of the logistics, it almost makes it impossible, but they're still trying to help them. In the same way, imagine if you're a Syrian who is a refugee who saved up for years, took all your savings to make it out of a war-torn area. Imagine your frustration having to sit there. You want to work, you want to provide for your family, but you can't because the system is so backlogged, because there's so many of you. You end up spending your savings to get to some place, and then you're kind of housed in this, not the greatest conditions in the world. And, imagine your frustration being in that position.
Exactly. And, this sounds all too familiar here in the United States with what we're seeing with the immigration problem, not only south of the border, but, everywhere. It just seems like people are trying to, well, not just trying, but they're coming into the United States, and again, they label themselves as refugee, but with it, I hate to say it, but it seems like they bring in their problems from their countries. And I want to go back a little bit and just say that when we use the term Muslims, and again, the disclaimer again, just this is our opinion, or I'll speak for myself. In my opinion, it's more radical Islam that's doing all this, not all Muslims, or for that matter, all Christians, or whatever religious sect you belong to. Not everyone is a terrorist or has it in for other people and countries and so forth. Just wanted to put that out there real quick, Brian.
No. I completely agree because I'm not. I mean, if you look into the Muslim faith, it's much like Israeli faith, Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
They're almost on a parallel path, and the violence is from radical Islam. It's not from your standard Muslim. Your standard Muslim is, for the majority of the part, a peaceful person. So yeah, most of this is from radicalization, and we have it in Christianity as well. So, and nobody is safe, shall we say, from the radicalization, no matter what the religion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we saw it happen with Christianity as well. I wanted to I just wanted to say hi to Lynn. How you doing, Lynn?
Hi, I'm still getting over the lost voice, but anyway, I just wanted to add that there's also the problem that there's two factions of Islam. There's the Sunnis and the Shiites.
Shiites, yes.
And that causes a lot of friction. I mean, that's where a lot of the problems are in that religion as well.
Well, that does cause friction, but again, I mean, imagine the culture clash, though. I mean, if you're going to a European Union country and you're coming out of the Middle East, imagine what the culture clash is like. I mean, just the difference in beliefs, the different way of doing things, culturally. I mean, just that alone is a frustration in and of itself between both parties.
Yep. I mean, some of them are living in mud huts still, like they did 2,000 years ago. So, yeah, going from that into Europe would be a huge culture clash.
And then to get limited down, I forget which country it was, but see, this comes back to a news article that I read a couple weeks ago, and I posted it on the Beyond the Strange Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and basically it was talking about the Syrian refugees, and it was perspective from our European allies, and especially that from Germany, where both the Germany's left party and right party were both blaming the United States because they didn't give enough to the rebel forces to get Assad off of the throne. Now, what kind of mad sense does that not make? It doesn't make any sense at all because, I mean, the United States funded those rebels. Now those rebels have turned into ISIS, ISIL, IS, whatever you want to call them. We funded them, and now look what they've become.
We make the best enemies money can buy.
I'm telling you.
That's a good point. Very good point.
And trust me, 9/11 just went by, 14 years. But it's not every Muslim that was involved. It was a radical fraction, and here, I sit here and I watch people, degrade Muslims or those of the Islamic faith, and I see it. And it's not only that, we also degrade each other in our own faiths, be it whatever sept we belong to, the Seventh-day Adventists, what have you. We also degrade each other there. But, what our major media has done has made the whole idea of Islam a bad thing. Yes, evil incarnate.
And they're not. It's not a bad religion. I mean, think about it this way, Brian, and let me ask you a question. Think about all the different, and I think Dave and I were talking about this last night. Think about all the different factions of Christianity. There's Lutheranism, there's Protestantism, there's Baptist, there's Southern Baptist, there's Methodist, There's, and I can go on. There's Lutherans. And I can go on and on and on and on. And each one thinks they're right.
Oh, absolutely, and you forgot Catholicism as well. But yes, every single
On
one of them.
purpose.
Okay, I'm sorry, but yes, you have the, and yes, you're correct. Every single one of them thinks they are correct, and it's like I don't understand why everybody can't just agree to disagree and call it a day. Not one is supremely evil. Hell, even the Satanists will tell you that they are not completely evil.
Exactly.
9/11 demonized Muslims, I think.
And that's what we've done. We've demonized Islam when it's not Islam that needs to be demonized. It's those that have radicalized Islam that need to be demonized.
Correct.
Yeah. Didn't Dick Cheney just warn us that there's going to be another false flag very, very shortly?
I haven't followed anything dealing with Dick Cheney for a number of years. So
Yeah,
it's just that I saw
recalling
something.
it.
I just saw
Go ahead,
something
Lynn.
about it. I don't know what I was looking at on the internet, but yeah, he was warning that there's going to be something like 9/11, or it's going to make 9/11 look like a kindergarten setup.
Well, that's not. That doesn't make me feel very safe. We are talking about the Syrian crisis with Brian Anderson, and we are here at Beyond the Strange. We're going to go ahead and take our last break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to the Beyond the Strange. I am Dave C., your host. We're talking about Monsanto. We're talking about the Syrian crisis. We're talking about just about everything that's affecting us today. And we're going to get into another discussion with Les Johnson the third. We're going to be talking a little bit about prepping and what you can actually do also to prep for the doomsday scenarios that are coming this way. Les, we seem to be having a mix of doomsday scenarios for next week. Of course, everyone knows about the meteor that's coming towards us, apparently on the 23rd. I'm going to be toasting some tequila that night. uh, but yeah, I mean, when it comes to prepping, I automatically think of food storage. And I know, looking at Facebook pictures and twit pics and that sort of thing, you seem to do a lot of that yourself when it comes to putting food away into a storage.
Yeah, well, I mean, as we were discussing a little bit earlier with Stephanie and Brian, it's really not that difficult. But you know what? It's become somewhat of a lost art. My grandparents and probably all of our grandparents used to, as children, used to have to take food, whether it was meat, they had to salt and they had to smoke and put in a root cellar, or they had to take, they had to take their vegetables from the garden and very simply put them into bottles and jars and cans, and what they now call water canning, which is they took some Gulf Seal wax, which is still available at any grocery store, and it would seal it that way. It seems in one generation, or in one or two generations since our grandparents, it's with food the way it is now, with the way Monsanto it comes along and all these other, it's very easy to get food, and so it's like everybody has forgotten how, and it's very simple. It's not that it's not that hard, really. I mean, you can do it in an afternoon or an evening, or it takes a couple of hours, and you can literally buy a ball canning jar guide at your local, oh god, I can't believe I'm going to say this, Walmart, along with the bottles, cans, jars, lids, and every other utensil you'll need to do it. It's you can put whole meals away. It's not that hard.
Yes, we were talking about that earlier, and Brian brought up a point. One of the reasons why people don't do this is because it's so easy and easily available to us when we go to our grocery store. We could pick up canned foods, bottled goods, bottled water, that sort of thing. I mean, water is one thing, of course. Unless you, I don't know, reverse osmosis your water.
Oh, you don't. With water, you don't even need to do that. All you got to do is put a kettle on the friggin' stove and just do a steam trap, boil it, let the steam get trapped, and pour into a bottle on its own. Natural condensation.
It's called distillation.
Exactly. I was just gonna say it sounds like a still or something. But yeah, I mean, it just, we've all been conditioned to believing that we can just go to the store whenever we want, pick up some food, pick up water, pick up whatever, and in the scenario of a doomsday, we're going to be screwed if we're not prepared. One of the things, I have a list here at the survivalistblog.net, says, one of the things you want to do is head over to your nearest Walmart, your Kmart, your Costco, whatever. Pick up 20 pounds of white brown rice, organic, of course. Pinto beans. White rice has a better storage life than brown rice does. Number two, while you're there, grab 5 pounds of mixed beans, white sugar, iodized salt, 1 gallon of olive oil. Sounds like a recipe for something. It definitely, just little by little, whenever you go to the grocery store, put these things away, because a scenario like a hurricane, an earthquake, those kind of things we can be prepared for. I mean, a meteor, the coming of the Antichrist, we're not going to be prepared for that. But no. Definitely, these are things just to think about when a disaster hits.
I bought a dehydrator, and I've been dehydrating a lot of vegetables and fruits and everything. And I've got a linen press, and my linen press is absolutely full of food like rice and all that sort of stuff. And even though, I mean, this is dark, but I'm a dialysis patient, so yeah, I'll be a goner in 2 weeks, but at least I've got
Oh.
food there for my nephew and his family.
Right. And you're absolutely right, Dave. It's you pick up little bits at a time. The whole reason we got into canning wasn't necessarily for survival, but it was so we could, we can do stuff like we have a whole bunch of like beef stew put up. We bought, organic beef, organic, we know everything we put in it. So once it's put up, it's a ready-made meal for whenever we need it or want it, and we can put it up in a closet. We don't have to we don't have to refrigerate it. Same thing with tomatoes. Same things with sauces. You don't have to do it just for survival. And then if a survival situation does come along, you've got along with your 50-pound bag of, or 25-pound bag of flour, you've also got, a 10-pound bag of rice. Black beans, pinto beans, are shelf stable. They can last for a year or more, probably much longer, just in that plastic bag they come in. All you got to do is stick them in some water, and they rehydrate. And beans and rice is probably the best freaking meal you're gonna get. You get your protein and your carbohydrates from that.
Exactly.
Hey, Les. Hey, Les.
Yes,
Let me
sir.
ask you, with your canning, now all your stuff is recyclable. You reuse it when you empty it out, right? Unless you break the seal on the lid.
Correct. They're starting to get sneaky with that. You used to be able to reuse the lids and reuse the tops and the screw-on lids, but
Right.
now after you either pressure can them or steam them or water bath them, the seal they warp when you open them up, so you can no longer use them. You have to buy new lids. Kind of sneaky, but it's a way they get you to buy more stuff.
Yeah, because I remember my grandmother did all the canning. I even helped her when I was a kid, but she grew up during the Depression era, and with her it was everything got used. Leftovers, you name it, everything got used regardless. Barely anything went in the trash.
Nope. No.
And
Waste
and
not, want not.
and she canned all the time. I mean, every summer she was in the kitchen canning everything. And I remember having to lug those jars all over the place.
Oh yeah. Same here.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Les. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. No, same here, Brian. They had a garden that they had a decent, not an acre size, but probably about a fifth of an acre that they, did their cucumbers, their squashes, their, and so on and so forth. And we would go to all the local fields and pick string beans and, green beans and everything else. And immediately what you did after, we went right to the kitchen and canned it as a kid. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, one of the things. What I was going to say was when Lynn brought up the point about dehydration, for those meat eaters out there, you paleo people, dehydrating your meats is probably one of the best ideas in this kind of scenario. Also, to have on you in case something like this happens, where you can't get to a store, and there you go with your protein. You have your jerky. You can make turkey jerky. You can do all kinds of things. Dehydration is a great idea. It's a good tool.
Yep. Well, on top of the dehydration, once you dehydrate everything, vacuum seal it.
Exactly, and it definitely will last you for a long, long time. And speaking of time, man, we are really getting close to the end of the show. Also, I wanted to bring up was the fact that we wanted to touch up a little bit on Jesus. We're not going to go totally into it, but Producer Holographic is going to be conducting one of our shows in the future about this subject. And not so much alien Jesus, Les, but as far as historical Jesus, we were touching a little bit on this yesterday. Some of the points that you brought up was the family that Jesus had. That a lot of people don't. Well, most people don't know. The Catholic Church wanted to keep a secret. And the things that they found to prove that Jesus, wasn't as I don't want to say. Yeah, I'm going to get backlash on this, but as
Mystical?
what mystical. Thank you. As he is in the Bible. Do you want to explain some of that?
Well, just as Scott Walter described to us earlier this week on Fade to Black, he was talking about the find of the ossuary of Jesus. That it not only it named his father and his mother, which is of course Mary and Joseph, but it also named his wife Magdalene, Mary Magdalene, and his children. One of which, and I don't remember the rest, but one of the names was Judah. And I do remember some people tweeting in the in the sandbox that if you were considered a teacher back then, you were stoned to death if you did not have at least 4 to 5 children.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I mean, not only that. What happened in the 20 plus years that that he was not talked about? There are close to 40 books that are not included in the King James version of the Bible. We have 24 missing books that were named in the Bible itself. There was the Apocrypha. There's the pseudo-epigrapha, and then the Didache, which was the actual book that supposedly existed about the teachings of Jesus to the actual apostles.
Well, and then on top of that, you also have the Book of Enoch, right, which wasn't included either.
That's part of the Apocrypha, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then now we've had the Dead Sea Scrolls as well, and Lord only knows what those bring in.
They just found the missing book of Judas not too long ago.
That's right. Now we talked about that too, and that right there is I'm interested in reading that big time.
It would be really interesting, to say the least. There are. I'll tweet it out later. I took some quick pics of some of the missing books for everybody. I've got my phone off right now, so that's where I have them stored. But there's about 40 missing books, and at least 24 are named in the Bible, but only a few are available now, I believe.
Speaking of tweeting, I want to go back a little bit, and Gunny is with us. He's been with us through the show. He's watching a little bit of football as well, but he did mention the imprint of organized religion is the stumbling block to peace and a new paradigm. And he also says hi to Lynn Lewis. So there you go, Lynn. That's interesting. And Allison says that one source says that 40,000 sects. I mean, that must go back to our Syrian segment. And also, Karen McIntyre, she points out that she also heard that Jesus didn't die on the cross either. Someone else was died in his place. Allison brings up the gospel. There's a gospel of Thomas. There's a gospel of Mary. There's a gospel of Judas. And Nurse Nancy says, don't forget the books found in Nag Hemp.
Will we ever know the truth?
Well, I mean, this is all ancient history, especially to us today. And so much gets lost through history because somebody wants it to be this way or somebody wants it to be that way, and so and if you think about it, it's not only Jesus Christ, but it's also Buddha as well. I mean, Buddha was a real man. He probably led a pretty normal life compared to what it was back then.
We have
They
also
found his
been
bones.
so manipulated.
Whoa. Go ahead, Lynn. What were you going to say?
We have been just so manipulated by so many factions of humanity and ETs, and will we ever learn all the truth? I mean, you know.
Well,
That's
not
a
only
good point.
that,
Go ahead, Les.
according to what, I'm going with what Brian just said. Very few of the people written about in the actual books, whether they be lost or not, were actually written by the people that they were written about.
True that.
It's all hearsay. It's all, passed down knowledge. So we don't know if it's real or not to begin with.
Right. Unless you were there, how do you know for sure? And history is being rewritten, guys. I mean, you all know that. Some of the things that have happened in our childhood that probably don't even exist anymore. They took them out of the history books. That's just something to think about.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, our history is constantly getting rewritten from what it was. I mean, just like what we were talking about with with Syria, going back to Afghanistan, and then you have the war on drugs, and this. It's all the same thing over and over and over and over again, and we never learned from it. Obviously, from the first couple times we went through it.
It does seem like it. Absolutely. Did you still want to touch up on that, Brian? I'm sorry. Before we went to break, I needed to go to a last break. I'm sorry.
Oh no. I'm perfectly fine with where it says. I just wanted everybody to know how many actual people are out there and where they're all going.
Mm-hmm.
What the actual. I mean, if you can imagine in your head, 11 million people.
Brian, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
And I know part of it is because of tribal warfare, but why so many? Why are there so many? Leaving? Why are there so many refugees?
Well, again, you have the different fractions, the different war leaders that are there that will kill anybody. I mean that's just simple as it. I mean they'll rape pretty much almost any woman they'll rape. They'll kill children. They'll kill men. They have no compunction whatsoever. And then you've got Assad on the other side, and they're trapped in between. So if you're not part of the Assad military and you're not part of any of the rebels, you're stuck in between. So if you've got 11 million people that are refugees, what is that telling you?
That's just amazing to me, and I guess they can't fight for themselves. It's just a horrible situation that many people are being forced out of their homes and being forced to be put somewhere else.
Well, and think about it. I mean, if let's put it this way: say you and your family, and let's say you had, we'll call it 5 kids. But there's 50 people on the left of you and 50 people on the right of you. Both of them have guns that are fully loaded, and they're trying to shoot each other, and you're in the center. What would you want to do?
Get out.
I'm sorry, I was on mute there for a minute. Brian, do you have anything to add before we go?
No, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening to us.
Les?
Thank you very much once again for having me on your show, Dave. I love you like a brother. You too, Brian. You too, Lynn. And you too, Steph. Love you all.
Oh,
Producer staff. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
I did forget one thing, and that was Spaceboy and Sir Lana's podcast that they put out. We did forget to mention that.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We definitely want to do a shout out to Spaceboy and his podcast. The links will be on our Twitter feed and in our Facebook as well, Beyond the Strange. Lynn, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you showing up, as always. And producer Holographic, thanks for being here. I want to thank everybody that showed up, and thanks for listening. And I'd like to thank my good friend Alan Hall, who plays this song right here, and our some of our bumper music that's pretty kick-ass. I want to add. And as a reminder, I also want to remind you guys that we will be having Chris Garitano for the Montauk Chronicles next week. That's going to be a killer show. And until then, have a good night. Be safe. Be strange. Believe it.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye-bye.